welcome to Ask the Experts, the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce's series to help business leaders grow their companies with practical advice and answers that you can implement right away. Special welcome to those watching remotely on Zoom as well. You are a valuable part of our audience today, and please interact with me in the chat. And also hello to those watching on the recording on YouTube. My name is Paul Casey. I'm the Executive Director of Leadership Tri-Cities and privileged to be your facilitator today. And you know, if I had a license plate, I would do this one. Creates, right? I've got grow forward right now, but I still think it's awesome that you get to be here, and this is a great topic for us today. This is a free benefit of your chamber membership, and it could be possible without the generous sponsorship of STCU. Come on up here, Monica. Welcome our crowd today.
Well, thank you. My name is Monica Cisneros. I'm the area branch manager for the Tri-Cities and Othello location. And I just want to thank you for joining us today. As an organization that's founded by educators 90 years ago, we're committed to continued improvement in our community as well as ourselves. And one of our values at STCU is striving. And so today we are eager to hear from 3 local leaders on innovation, and their firsthand knowledge will be inspirational and useful in the real world. So thank you all for attending, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Grateful for your support. So for approximately half of our 90 minutes together, our experts will be presenting their gold nuggets on our topic of sparking the fire, unleashing creativity. And for the second half, they will be answering your questions. If you'd like to ask a question, and we encourage everyone here to ask, to think of one question to ask the experts, whether you're virtual or here in the room, even if you're an introvert, you can text me at 509-392-1895, which you could write down or put in your phone right now. Or if you want to stay anonymous, or you can use the chat if you're watching virtually. Of course, if you're here in the room, you can just raise your hand. I will be vetting the questions and feeding those to the experts, getting to as many as we can. Their contact information, they've got business cards today afterwards, so make sure you snatch one of those if you want to follow up with them. All right, let me introduce our speakers today. Deb Dihel received her Bachelor of Science in Food Science from Cornell University, and her PhD in Food Science and Technology from the University of California at Davis. She has 28 years of experience working in the food industry. She started her career at the Coca-Cola Company. In 2007, she joined Lamb Weston, and she is currently Vice President, Strategic Growth Innovation at Lamb Weston, focusing on building new business opportunities outside of our core through innovation. Jana Strasberg. Dr. Jana Strasberg joined PNL, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, in 2003 and has leveraged her technical experience and soft skills to contribute to and eventually lead projects and organizations within the laboratory. During her 20-year career at PNL, she has worked as a researcher, a technical leader, and project manager and group leader. She currently serves as the co-lead of the Innovation Foundry, an organizational construct that applies the rigor of design thinking to innovation and strategic planning at PNL and beyond. She earned a PhD in physics from the University of Washington. And Aaron Welling. Doing the clap after the name today. Yeah. Is the co-founder and CEO of Sonar Insights, a market research firm specializing in helping businesses navigate their markets with clarity. Aaron has advised senior leaders from Fortune 500 companies to entrepreneurs and everything in between. Aaron has over 20 years of experience in business operations and strategy consulting. He received a BA in Spanish from Brigham Young University and an MBA in International Management from the Thunderbird School of Global Management. He is passionate about customer insights and growth through data. We have a great group for you today, and Deb's going to kick us off.
I am, thank you. There we are. Wow, what an introduction, and so great to see everybody here. And I'm noticing there's a lot of women, so yeah, women business leaders, so impressed. Good job. We like men too, no problem. No problem. But it's just nice to see that diversity here at the meeting today, so that's great. And we've had a really good time working together and getting to know each other and as we put this together for you. So I hope you'll enjoy. So I'm going to kick us off and then talk a little bit about what innovation is and different types of innovation. And then I'm going to hand it over to Aaron. He's going to go through his expertise, and then Jana with hers, and then I'll finish it up with some examples from my work with French fries. So let's get us all on the same page. Innovation can mean many different things, and it can be, a very broad topic. And we probably can talk for days about this topic. So getting us to try to keep it within 45 minutes was actually a huge challenge. But we're really just trying to talk about the idea of bringing together new ideas and methods and change to your organization, and then implementing those into your organization. So it's really about, could be ideas, methods, products, services that have some sort of significant impact and value to your business. And so again, we're really talking about creative ideas that have tangible outcomes, and they can improve efficiency, they can make you more effective, they can address some unmet need that your customer has. So it's not just product innovation. There's many different types of innovation you can use these techniques that we're going to talk about today. Leading there, and so here's some examples of what I'm talking about. Now, I do product development, so I make new French fries. So that is, think about, if you see a different flavor or different shape, that's what my team does. So that's clearly a product innovation. Packaging and process innovation is another sort of way. What we do, the way you cut a French fry can be very different. So it's a process of making the product, or it could be a process of how you do an HR process. You want to do something differently. You want to do your end of year promotion or end of year raises differently. So that could be an innovation. That's a process innovation. A business model innovation, an example of this is like Airbnb or Uber. They don't actually own any cars or hotel rooms, but yet they are a transportation or a hospitality, hotel kind of service, right? That's a business model innovation that somebody thought of and is now making a lot of money doing that. A service innovation, this is an example. If you're like an insurance company, there's a good example here. Sometimes when you buy a new house or you buy an old house, you get like a warranty that goes with it. You could get a manufacturer or a home buyer's warranty. That's $300. Well, that was in case something happens with your house in the first year, it's covered to give you peace of mind when you buy an older house. That's an innovation, right? Somebody in the insurance industry figured that out, and they're making $300 a pop every time we sign up for that. So that was an innovation that, makes money for that. Most of the time, I would imagine, makes money for the insurance company. Digital innovation, an example of that, if you go to your restaurants, this is in my industry, and you don't really get since COVID, you don't really get the greasy menus anymore. You just look it up on a QR code and you see and then that's so much cheaper for the restaurant because they want to change those menus often. They have to change those menus often. And every time they had to change a menu before COVID, they had to print another menu. Very, very expensive. So that's a huge innovation with just putting the QR code. Social innovation, think about like GoFundMe, a social cause, a way to do things differently. You want to be able to give somebody that you care about or a cause you care about money, but it's just too difficult to get it to them. GoFundMe solved that problem. That was an innovation in the digital space. And then I like to add problem solving and continuous improvement, because if you're trying to solve a problem or just make things a little bit better, that's also innovation. So you don't have to be scared and be like, oh, I'm not an innovator. No, I mean, if you're a problem solver, if you're trying to make anything a little bit better, you can use these techniques to be an innovator with your company. And then why do you bother to innovate? You know, we talked about the classic examples of Blockbuster that went out of business, or the Kodak that was doing, you know, pictures, films. I mean, obviously, if you don't innovate and you're a product company, you're probably going to go out of business, right? Because your product's no longer going to be relevant to your audience. It's a simple example, but that's true probably for any of your businesses. Unless you're like in like a mortuary or something, right? I mean, but even they can innovate. There's so many innovations going on in that whole space, right? So, I mean, there's really, I don't think there's any businesses that you're involved with that you wouldn't be able to innovate to keep competitive, to make yourself more efficient. You know, to engage your employees, like people love to do this. And if you need a way to kind of spruce up your office, you know, talk about innovation and do some of these techniques and get people's ideas on the table, and people really respond and they get excited about their jobs. And then of course, sustainability of staying relevant to your with your consumers. So I'll turn it over to Aaron to talk about his pretty amazing company and what they do.
Yeah, so. Is everybody still awake? We're good? Haven't fallen asleep yet? Awesome. I'm gonna check my watch so I don't go overtime. Because if I go overtime, then we don't get to hear about Deb and fries. We all know we want to hear about Deb and fries at the very end. All right, so I want to talk to you about an important aspect of what we call the fuzzy front end of innovation. Anybody ever hear that term? It's the fuzzy front end of innovation because a lot of people say, well, where does innovation come from? Well, it comes from that fuzzy front end, and nobody kind of understands or exactly why or where it comes from. I mean, they do, but it's not from one particular place. It comes from a lot of different places. And a lot of that involves market research, and that's what my company does. And so I want to talk to you about that and why market research is so important at the very front end so that you can innovate in the right places. So let's talk about understanding the problem space. We need to make sure that we're solving a problem anytime we are innovating. Now, that problem can be external to our customers. It might be internal to our own company or organization, right? But we need to be solving a problem. I want to give you an example of an innovation that everybody hailed as one of the biggest innovations ever. It was going to change the world and change the way that we get from point A to point B. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Self-driving cars.
Segway. Segway. Okay, when Segway came out 10, 15 years ago, it was huge. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's the most innovative thing. Everybody's going to use Segway in the future. And when was the last time anybody got on a Segway? In the last year? Anyone? Does anybody own a Segway? No. Okay, Segway dropped. Nobody uses them anymore except mall cops, right? And so why is that? Because it solved a problem that didn't exist. We have to make sure that we are understanding the problem or the challenge that needs to be overcome first so that we can innovate in the right places. Otherwise, we're just creating for creation's sake, and that typically doesn't work out. So I want to talk about doing the research to make sure that we can do that. We're going to talk about customer needs and digging into the problems that the customers have. We're going to talk about market trends and how understanding market trends can make sure that you don't get blindsided or disrupted. Looking at the competitive landscape, making sure that you know what your competitors are doing because they can blindside you as well. Case in point, Netflix and Blockbuster. And internal gaps, making sure that you are looking where you can innovate so that you are staying cutting edge. All right. So let's dig into customer needs. There's lots of ways that we can dig into customer needs. Tons and tons of ways to do it, but I want to talk about 4 today. And these are all great ways to get a lot of information out of your customers so that you can understand how to solve their problems. Because if we can solve their problems, then we can make them customers for longer and we can, you know, continue to grow our business. So the first way we can do that is through surveys. Any of you can go and do a survey with any of your customers. You can go to SurveyMonkey. You can set up a free account. It's super easy to do and set out a survey and get a lot of great data from your customers. All right. That's a great thing to do. Surveys allow us to see the breadth of a problem. We can see how many people it's affecting. The only problem with surveys is we don't get into the depth of the problem. We don't understand the whys behind it. So we don't exactly know how to solve that problem and how to innovate on it, which is why we have the next couple or three here. The first one I want to talk about is interviews. You can do you can get a lot of great data from your customers if you do interviews, because you can get to ask the why behind why they're behaving in certain ways, why they buy certain things, why they use your competitor over you. You can dig into that really well. There's just a couple of problems with interviews. Anybody know what they are? I'm sorry, I'm gonna make this interactive. Anybody?
People tell you lies.
People can tell you lies. And if you're only talking to one person, that's gonna be problematic. Okay, anything else? If I wanna go interview 100 people, how long is that gonna take? A lot of time, that's right, and unfortunately, time is money. So you can get a lot of great data out of those interviews, but you're not gonna be able to do it, you're not gonna be able to get, do a ton of those interviews. However, it's a great way to understand what the big problems are and get to the depth of them. A good solution in between there is focus groups. Has anybody been involved in a focus group before? Okay, so focus groups are a great way to get a few people into a room. You get to that depth of the problem, you understand what's going on, and you have additional validation by other people in that group so that you can understand what the problems are and understand if other people agree with you so that they're not lying, and make sure that you are understanding the real problem so that you can go innovate against it. The last thing I want to talk about is ethnography. And ethnographic research is a way that you can go and watch people, observe them in their natural habitat and see what they're actually doing so that you can identify if they're operating with your services or with your products in weird ways that might mean that there are compensating behaviors or unarticulated needs that they don't really understand. They're just operating with it that way. And that allows you ways to innovate through different products and services that you can provide. I've got to do this once with Pizza Hut. We got to watch people order pizzas, and we got to watch people eat pizzas, and you can get a lot of information from people as to what to do and how to innovate based on watching what they do and how they interact with your products or with your services. So lots of good ways to get information out of customers to understand their needs. Doing well on time. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is trends. We all know what trends are, right? Trends are things that are happening out there in the market that might affect us in the long run. If we don't know what trends are going on, we could get disrupted. I've given 5 buckets of trends here. I've given an example of lots of trends within those buckets. I could talk about them, but it doesn't matter what trends you're looking at, just as long as you are making sure that you're looking at a breadth of trends. Technology. We all know what technological trends are, and we all see those technological trends. And these things have changed the way we interact today. They've changed our lives. I mean, AI is just at the forefront, and it's starting to affect us. How it's going to affect us, all of us in business and in organizations need to be looking at that as to how it can disrupt it and what we need to do to innovate as a result of it. We got social, we've got geopolitical, we've got cultural, we've got economic, so many different trends that we need to be aware of, thinking about and saying, well, okay, so we know our needs, but how are things changing in the world that are going to affect us, and how do we innovate against those trends? All right. The next thing is the competition. All right. You need to understand what your competition is doing. If you don't know what your competition is doing and you think you can just, live in this bubble of, well, I'll take the competition will take care of itself because I'll just beat them out. You're going to be in trouble. You need to make sure that you know what your customers are doing, how they're acting, who they're serving, what products and services they have. Because if you don't, I've gone into companies before and they've said, oh, we should do this. We had this great idea, this innovative product, and we'll just do this. And we've said, your competitor is doing that, right? They have no idea because they're so buried in themselves and what they're doing that they don't recognize the competition that's out there. And it's not just what our who are your competitors, but what are the competing products or the competing services that are out there that fill needs that you are filling also. If you're a hydration company, if you're Gatorade and you think, well, I just need to do more, the only people I need to worry about is Propel and Powerade, then you're not looking at the bigger picture of, well, what about water? Water's filling a need for a lot of people when it comes to hydration. And I need to make sure that I am recognizing that because it is a competitor of mine. Understanding your competitors allows you to make sure that you are not just innovating in that bubble of where you think you exist. And again, if Blockbuster was really watching out, they wouldn't have let Netflix get to where they were without coming up with a solution, without coming up with a different way to innovate so that they would still exist today. All right, and next is identifying those internal gaps. So there's lots of places inside of an organization where you could be innovating. It could be within your knowledge and experience, it could be with your processes and procedures, it could be employees and training, systems and technologies, your assets and IP. There are lots of things internal to any organization that is going to allow you to innovate on different types of things. Every company, every organization has those challenges. When we look at it and analyze it, there are ways that we can make sure we're shoring up those gaps, or we're taking those capabilities that we do have and maximizing them within different innovation projects so that we are getting the biggest bang out of our buck. So that is, oh my gosh, I did so well. That is research in a nutshell. Doing that market research at the very front end, making sure that we understand the problem and we're trying to solve the problem is paramount first. Understand your customer needs, understand what the market trends are, understand who your competitor is and how you can beat them or even become a fast follower. Apple didn't come up with streaming music, or not streaming music, but a music player first. They were a fast follower, got there. Afterward, they just did it better because they had a more innovative product, because they studied their competitor, they studied their customers, they knew exactly what they need to do, and they utilized their internal experience to get them there. So make sure you do your research. And after you've done all that research and you know problems and the challenges that are out there, then you get to get down to the nitty gritty and start to innovate. And that's what Jan's going to be talking about next.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Yep.
So as I said, I'm at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. I'm co-lead of the Innovation Foundry. We have a number of catalysts, and you'll see as we go through some of our slides, what we really focus on with our current brand right now is kind of getting in touch with your inner 6-year-old, because that inner 6-year-old thinks this shopping cart is going to get them to the moon. They're not judging their ideas. They're not wondering about, oh, well, no, this has to be realistic. How much is it going to cost? What's going to happen? That they're able to think and view things in a very different way. And so when you're thinking about innovation, how do you get in touch with your inner 6-year-old that's not going to judge ideas, that's going to be able to think a little bit outside the box that might lead to those new ideas? So we've functioned at P&L for about the last 8 years. Started in 2016 with a pilot program that I led at P&L called Q Camp, that was really about, let's bring together people for a really focused activity to really teach them some rules about innovation, some techniques that they can use, and send them forward and see what we can actually do during that time. And since then, we've continued to grow and mature. We do things with other research directorates out at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. We work with other national labs. We work with people in the federal government with special programs, Department of Homeland Security, the National Nuclear Security Administration, and others. And really one of the things that really launched us was COVID in 2020. So one of the things the Foundry was standing up at the laboratory, we'd had some other activities going on, some investments over the first number of years. But in 2020, when COVID hit, our Deputy Director for Science and Technology came to us and said, hey, we just shut down. This was like literally March 15th. So like that first Monday after, I guess, 16th. It was Friday the 13th, because I remember that was the last day of sort of normalcy before everything changed.
And when we came in on the 16th, they said, we need to figure out what we as a laboratory can do. What can we stand up? We stood up a portal to be able to solicit ideas from people from all over the laboratory, turn those around, evaluate those ideas, understand what that could be, have a number of workshops. And we went through a process to have those workshops and actually came out with white papers that we were turning back around in about 3 weeks. Which for some place like a national laboratory to go from start of concept to 3 weeks later, actually having ideas that we're putting out there was pretty remarkable. And we had to do all of that virtually, which meant we as the Foundry had to figure out, how do we actually do this virtually? We don't have sticky notes and tear sheets and the things that we would do in a room like this. We need new ways to do it. So we had to figure out, how do we use Zoom? How do we use other tools? How do we innovate ourselves in this process? And coming out of the initial pilot, I had an opportunity with the TEDx Richland to give a TED Talk. So you can look it up out there to talk about what are the different building blocks of innovation. And the thesis of that talk is really about innovation is about a deliberate process to bring together people from different backgrounds and perspectives in a place where they have the tools and the space to be creative. And when you do that, you can develop new products, you can gain new perspectives, and you can accelerate progress. But you have to think about all of these things together and how they work together. That too often when we come together and we think about the outcome that we want to achieve, like if we at the laboratory will say, oh, we want to get collaboration between these groups. We're going to bring them together, we're going to put them in the same room, and then we're going to serve pizza and we'll have PowerPoint. Like, well, I wanted to like build collaboration. How is watching PowerPoint and eating pizza going to actually build that collaboration? I had the wrong process for the outcome that I wanted to do. So you have to think about, what is the process that you're looking for to achieve the outcome? Who are the people that you want in the room? And who are, what is the space and the place and the tools that you need to have there? So you can check out the TED Talk and learn more, and I have some of the innovation cubes and some of those that are still left over a couple years later. And that really is continued into the Foundry, where we say, what are the building blocks of innovation? It's really about the discipline, it's about the people, and it's about the space and tools that you bring together. So discipline, I think of this, and I love this picture of that when you're thinking about discipline, it isn't necessarily like, I must be very rigorous, like, oh, innovation requires being spontaneous. You can still be spontaneous, but you have to be deliberate about it. If I want to get up and start running a marathon, I can't just go from my couch and run a marathon. I have to actually start to work at it. And the things that you can work on the innovation is a skill that you can learn some of these practices and techniques and start to use them routinely. And you will get better and better at it. You will think about problems differently. And we saw that, and we see that at the laboratory, where people can come in, they've learned some of these skills and how they can accelerate through some of the stages of innovation that are necessary. And we have, you want to think about that process, and the Foundry works to look at what's the outcome and what's the process or the workflow that you want to get to there. You're going to have different techniques. There's many different types of tools out there, and you want to use them depending on what it is that you're trying to get to. And so thinking about what is the discipline, that process that you get to, and what are those tools that you can focus on. Who are the people that you want to have be a part of it? Is it the usual people? Like, do you come with the usual people, ask the usual question in the usual conference room space? Guess what? You're probably going to get the usual answers. And so if you want something different, you need to change something about that. You can change the people. Maybe I bring in some outside perspectives. Maybe I bring in other people within my organization. You want to make sure that you're being as diverse as possible with those teams, that all of your different flavors of diversity. How long has somebody been at your organization or your company? All of the gender, ethnographic, age, all of that is important to think about when you're looking at your team, so that you're bringing all of those different perspectives to the conversation. The space is important. Space can be a physical space. It's a virtual space. What are the virtual tools that you're bringing along with you? And what's the mental space that you need? Thinking about innovation, sort of going back to some of the previous pictures, how do you get in touch with your inner 6-year-old? How do you find the space for yourself to be creative? What do you need for your team to be able to be creative? What's going to help them do that? Maybe it's the usual conference room. Maybe it's going on a walk and say, hey, we're gonna take this meeting on the road and we're gonna walk through. We're gonna go to a park. We're gonna go to some other location that looks very different and has a different feel that's now maybe gonna provide some different perspectives. You can do these things virtually, whether that's on Teams or Zoom or many other types of tools, and bringing them together. Those tools are important, figuring out what is it that you need? How are you gonna capture the ideas? Are you using sticky notes? Are you using tear sheets? Are you using whiteboards? Are you using electronic things like Office 360 or Google Docs or whatever that might be that you're gonna use to capture the information? The tools that you need to be creative. We bring pipe cleaners, we bring popsicle sticks, we bring things that people can play with, that people can fidget and move around if they need to, because that's part of being creative. And so understanding those different approaches. So working off of these building blocks has really been foundational for us. And we've put together a toolkit that we as Catalyst actually use. And I have a handful of these physical copies that are available. And then everybody should be getting, or we'll have an electronic PDF of this available afterwards that everyone will have access to. That can think about what are the different types of outcomes that you're looking for. What are some different tools and processes, different techniques that you can use to think about as part of that process? What do you want to think about when you're thinking about the people? What do you want to think about with the spaces? And so these are all references that we have and that we think about all these different ways to think about innovation and really a toolkit that we can keep with us and that we can give to others to be able to use and move forward with. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Deb to talk about what is actually some of the outcomes when you actually do that.
Awesome, thank you. I think you have a building out there, right? I mean, the Foundry is a real place, right?
We are not a real place.
You're not.
We
Oh.
move.
Okay, okay.
We adapt to the
What's
space. that we
your
need.
favorite place to innovate?
Favorite place to innovate? I mean, I think having rooms like this that don't usually look like this, that then we move them into tables, or like more small group discussion tables.
Yeah.
Lots of toys on the tables,
Yeah.
butcher paper.
Yeah. And just getting away from your office.
Yes.
Probably, I love your park idea, like go sit at a park bench, especially with this beautiful weather, right? That's a great idea to go out there. I've never done that and innovated at a park. Okay, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about at Lamb Weston and how we approach innovation. If you don't know Lamb Weston, we are the largest French fry company in the United States. And we have many, we grow our potatoes right here in the Columbia Basin. And so we have many manufacturing facilities all around with Pasco, Richland, Connell, Boardman. Our headquarters are in Eagle, Idaho, and the R&D center, the tech center is in Richland, Washington, out of 240. So that's where I work. And we're responsible for the innovation for the company out there and from all over the world. We innovate French fries for Australia, for China, Argentina, and for, brew cheese, right? So all of it. We serve over, our products serve 800 million fries a day, 800 million fries servings every day. We are where the potatoes are. Like, this is the best place in the world, this and Idaho, to grow potatoes. And so that's why we're here.
We're all gonna be hungry by the end of this.
I know, and I didn't bring anything to eat. So, this is where I work. So I'm at the Innovation Center. I don't know if you've seen this. We just put these new statues up front, but it's super fun, right? We talked about the place. We talked about having a place that's new and bright and different and airy and just gives people permission to think differently. And so that's what we tried to do when we created this Innovation Center. We want customers to come and to spend time with us and talk about their issues and their problems, and then we can figure out if we can develop a product that will meet their needs right here at the Innovation Center. So we have people come from all over the world, believe it or not, to visit us. And then we have a pilot plant back here where we can actually make pretty much any type of French fry you can imagine. And we can do it at real time. So, we talk about it in the morning, and then we go to lunch, by the afternoon, somebody made a French fry and we can taste it, and then we can say yes or no, or this is this direction. So it's really an awesome place. And we built it in 2016, and it's been wonderful asset to the innovation, program. And so, I've been doing this a long time, and I kind of boil it down to this slide. This helps me a lot, and valuable problems to solve. That is the key phrase. That's what you should be thinking about if you're thinking about innovating into your business. What are the valuable problems to solve? Who is the person or stakeholder who has the problem? Like, is it an internal innovation where you're trying to solve a problem that you guys have internally, or is it a customer, you're probably trying to solve, or potential customer you're trying to solve a problem for? Who has the problem? Why is this problem, or what is a compelling and insightful problem that they want to solve? Market research, right, really helps define who are we going after, and what is the problem they're trying to solve? What is the insight behind that problem? Not what the solution is, but what's the problem? And then why is it valuable? Why will somebody pay more money for that solution over another solution that they have access to? So the problem has to be frequent, or it has to be painful. One of the kisses of death in a focus group of a new product, and it's happened to me, is when somebody says, "This is great camping food." How many times do you guys go camping? Like 3 times a year, maybe, if you're lucky. 4, maybe some avid campers, maybe all the time, but that's not good for a food product. And you want to be in everybody's weekly diet, right? That's a winner, right? So when someone says camping food, they're usually like serious, and we're like, oh, no. The problem that we're solving is not frequent or painful enough for them to pay more money for it. So this is what you can do to try to formulate your valuable problem to solve. How can my company help somebody else or ourselves, but how can we help this customer? And I have a vivid description of who the stakeholder is, and then this is where your compelling and insightful problem comes in. So here's my example. How can we help a single unit operator, which is like a person who has one restaurant in a dense urban area like New York City or Seattle downtown, and they don't have any places to store their French fries, because French fries are big boxes and their freezer is about this big. So how can I help the single unit operator in dense urban areas manage the packaging? Wrong example. Manage the packaging materials after use. So they're going through stacks and stacks of product, and they have no place to throw away their garbage. Same issue if they had a small freezer. They have no place to store their freezer. So maybe I have to make a shelf-stable product, or maybe I have to make a refrigerated product because they have plenty of refrigeration, but not a lot of freezer, right? So formulate your valuable problem to solve. If you can do that, like, you are 90% of the way there. Coming up with the ideas is actually the easy part. Coming up with the problems, with the valuable problem to solve, is the hardest part of innovation, in my opinion. So creative concepts. And so this is pretty much what Aaron already said. Where do you look for these valuable problems to solve? You can't keep digging. Like, you can't look for things like, well, we want our customers to make more money, right? Okay, well, that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to help our customers be more successful. So in our case, what's costing them the most money? Well, labor costs are huge right now, right? So maybe the valuable problem to solve is I can help our customers reduce labor costs. Maybe that's what we want to go after, labor costs. Maybe their prices are too high on their menu. So how can I help them reduce their overall spend on their food? Like, try to be more specific, try to dig a little deeper than surface level. Get away from your desk, go talk to people, go watch people, find compensating behaviors. This is behavior, people use your product, but it doesn't work perfectly, so they do something else to it. Think about like, those really annoying, Ziploc bags for freezers that never work, right? And so what do? Like, I actually cut mine off because they get in the way, and I roll it up and I put a rubber band on my stuff. And so that's like 25 cents for that zipper. Like, that's super expensive. And then everybody cuts it off, right? So that's a compensating behavior. So if you're watching somebody use your product and they're doing something that they're not supposed to be, wasn't designed for that, then it's not working, right? And that's a way for you to identify that there's an opportunity there to solve that problem in a better way or a more cost-effective way, because they're not satisfied with it. But remember, it has to be painful and it has to be or often, right? If they only cut that off once a year, it's not worth it. But if they're doing that every day or every week, then that's a problem they want to solve. Invest in insights. I'm not getting any payback, but finding out that's where you really want to put your money is figuring out what's wrong, what's going on, what problem can I solve? Find inspiration in other industries or competitors. How did somebody else solve the problem? You don't even have to look in your industry. You can look in a different industry. So, you know, watching the new products that come out of the grocery store, or watching what, you know, what realtors are doing differently. I mean, that's just all data that you can use to solve your problems, because it's creative and innovative thinking. If you can think about, well, what are they trying to solve and why did that innovation work? Try to come up with, you know, work yourself backwards, and you can kind of learn how to innovate in that way. And then we did talk about this, rehashing a valuable problem to solve if something's changed. I've been around the company a long time, and so sometimes we have new people that come in with same ideas that we had 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And instead of saying, we tried that, it didn't work, we'll think about, well, maybe we're ahead of our time. Like, what's different? Like, well, people are working remotely now, or they weren't working remotely 10 years ago. So is this now a valid problem to solve? Is this a good solution? So just rehash things in a positive way. Now this is important too. So you have a valuable problem to solve. So you know who you're helping, what the problem is, and it's valuable. Then you have to have some reason that you guys are going to solve it in the right way, or that you have some right to solve that problem. Like if I come up with a really good solution for Tesla, Weston is not going to be successful at selling electric vehicle. It's not our business. So even if it's a really good idea, you got to have the right to win. You got to have the right to do it. So you have to either have some knowledge, you know, have a brand, have a technical skill, have some sort of asset that is going to let you be able to solve that problem and then make money, right? So it has to kind of fit in your business model. And you have to make sure that you can make money. So the product can't be too expensive for the price, right? So what's the value and what is it going to cost for you to make it? This is probably where you would push back on me and say, no, don't worry about price. When you start coming up with ideas, but I can't get that out of my mind because I've been burned too many times with a product that was just too expensive to make and nobody would buy it, right? Nobody's gonna pay $14 for, you know, a pound of special French fries, right? They're just not gonna do it. So I've gotta keep my cost in line much below the benefit, what someone's willing to pay. So there's this money to be made, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do, is help the world and make money. So this is our innovation advice. You know, really, I think it's important for everybody to consider innovation as part of their business and, you know, figure out, you know, how you can devote resources to it because it's that important. Train your teams on the process to do innovation. There's many approaches to innovation. I mean, and I think the toolbox that Jana shared will help you, you know, sort through it. You could start very simple, like who's our stakeholder? What are we trying to solve? And then what are the ideas to solve that problem? It doesn't have to be complex. Choose the right concepts by defining your valuable problems to solve. And the reason you can execute, and the reason you can make money. Like, that's how you take this big, broad, all these ideas, and you try to narrow down to where you really think this makes sense for you, for your company to do. And then always stay curious, observant, and resilient, because it's a very frustrating business to be in innovation, because you usually fail. Like, I've been doing it 28 years, and that story that I told is my best innovation, right? So, and, you know, so it's not like you're gonna hit a home run, and you may be doing it, but you are gonna make improvements, and you are going to see a lot of satisfaction in your employees when you do it. I think that's it, yeah. And there's our contact information, and I think we're excited to take your questions.
Right, let's kick us off with a question.
Just out of general curiosity, how many fries do you eat a day?
Today,
A day, on average?
it's terrible. There's so many french fries there. We actually spit them out because it becomes too much. And it's, you know, you do get sick of french fries. So. But when I go on vacation, like 3 or 4 days on vacation, then I start craving french fries. I've been there 18 years, so it's like, and we have, you know, all day long, there's food everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, it's rough.
You said no one wants to pay $14 or something like that for a bag of french fries, but is there this magic french fry that's just waiting out there? Even if it was a very expensive price that the world would just love, it just isn't being produced because of price?
Well, you could put it, yeah, we could fry it in avocado oil, super healthy. We could, it could be, that's probably the biggest, that would probably be if I could do something, like I would move to avocado oil or olive oil or something super, you know, super healthy. We have it in canola oil now, which is a fairly healthy oil compared to like palm oil or lard, but this is too expensive. So yeah, I guess it would be truffled avocado oil French fries. With black truffle and a little sea salt, avocado oil.
I thought you'd say duck fat.
Well, it's not healthy. I'm kind of into the avocado things. Duck fat would work too, yeah.
So how can you nurture a creative mindset? What habits will help you be more creative?
I mean, I think habits to be creative is sort of trying to understand for yourself, both how do you engage your creative self yourself? So that might be, some people are visual, and so looking at pictures, coloring, having something that is a very visual thing works for them. Other people are auditory, so they want to have conversations, they want to listen to music, they need some sort of sound to help them get creative. Some people are kinesthetic, so they need to go for walks, they need to pace around, they need to fidget with something. And so understanding for yourself, how do you engage your creative skills so that you know when you're like, all right, if I need to be creative, I know for myself, if you want me to daydream, you need to just talk at me. If I don't have something to look at and you're just talking, I'm like, I will dream and think of all sorts of things. So understanding for myself, that's what I need to do to have something that works. So understanding what that looks like. And then just thinking about, we talk about divergent and convergent ideas. So how do you be very divergent in your ideas or flare out? I want to come up with all sorts of things. And then I'm going to look at cost, or I'm going to look at other constraints to figure out how do I select some of these. And then I'm going to flare and focus and flare and focus. And so not trying to say, oh, I have the one idea. I've solved it, I'm done. Like, well, let me think of 5 ideas, and then that first one might actually still be the one, but I can now put it in the context of the other 5. And so you want to have lots of ideas that you're coming up with, and then come back and select where do you want to start to move off into that next place, and flare and focus, and flare and focus. So kind of using some of those techniques of understanding how to engage for yourself, and then how do you start to get more deliberate about trying to think of lots of things and then select 1 or 2 to move forward. Lots of things, 1 or 2 move forward.
That's good.
I would add to that. I loved Deb's last slide there. part of being creative is having stimulus that allows you to create. So whether that's data, for some people, it might be observations, just looking at what's going on around you. A lot of those different stimulus help you to be creative. My wife doesn't like to go shopping with me because I take longer than she does typically in a grocery store. Because I will sit and analyze everything that's on an aisle shelf, and I will look at the packaging and how it's, how they put it on there and what the different marketing language is and the different things that are people trying to sell. I'm always observing what's going on around me because it might come up in the next project that I have of, oh, well, this industry is doing this or this industry is doing that. Just being curious and observant as a stimulus helps with that creativity.
I guess I got one for you. So how would you recommend you get insight into like your competition for more of a service-based business? Other than hire Aaron, of course.
Or I was gonna say hire one of their
Yeah.
employees, but that's not right either.
So getting insights on a competitor's business or multiple competitors. A lot of it's go to their website, see what their website says about them, talk to people around you, just casual, conversations with people at work, people that you meet at church, people out on the street, talk to them and see what they have to say about those different businesses, those different competitors. Shoot out a survey. An anonymous survey and, it depends, whatever you're trying to find out, you can find out a lot of information about competition and what they do and what makes them unique and why they would choose one competitor over another, whether it's a product or a service company. That works. Thank you.
We do monthly cuttings because we're a product company, so we would bring in. So I imagine you can do something similar in the service industry, right? It's just like, look at their services on a regular basis and what they offer and then compare them to yours and kind of, without emotion, trying to figure out what's good, what's better about theirs or yours. Yeah, just on a regular basis. Cause you're right.
Do that quarterly.
I think we can do it about quarterly, but we actually have a person, like, that's all they do, because it's really hard to get the product. Like, we can't just order it from them, they won't sell it to us. So you have to kind of go, there's a business, talk about business model innovation, there's a person you can hire that will go buy competitive products for you, because they won't sell them to you. So, and it's wicked expensive, it's like 20 times what you should be paying for the same sample. So, yeah, but I do think the routine analysis and the website is probably, or any sort of social media. You'd be surprised how much people share publicly. You just want to stay above the line, right? Stay above the line. Everything should be public. And, you'll be able to sleep at night.
So, Aaron, you mentioned in the focus groups that like taking positive feedback was really important, but what percentage out of like the focus groups and everything do you think you value having a negative opinion toward the innovation?
We value any opinion. It doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. And the rule in a focus group is don't shut people down, let them talk, even if they have no idea what they're talking about. Even if they're saying something wrong about whatever they're saying, they could say the world is flat. You don't argue with them. You just are getting input from them and seeing what they have to say. Whether it's positive or negative, you want that feedback, because if you're hearing something bad about a product, you want to hear about it. You want to hear about it early.
Yeah.
Because if you don't hear about it early, you're gonna hear about it way too late after you've invested way too much time, money and effort into it. So negative feedback is good feedback. It just allows you to make sure that you're making changes and pivoting in the right places.
So like, I guess, how do you stop that from becoming a debate? Because you get into situations, I'm sure, in focus groups where you get two opposite ends of the spectrum, completely disagree.
Sure.
How would you look at that as somebody who's like, okay, this person loves it, this person hates it? And how do you look at both those people and go, well, I like him and I like her, and then you have to take it and, divvy it up to everybody else and make sure that
Sure.
we're like, do we agree?
Well,
Is
you're
that-
you're looking at it objectively, and neither person is wrong. They're both right.
Right.
So it's just data. You're just looking at it as data, as, okay, well, these three people think this, and these three people think this, and that's great. That's just data. Getting them to not fight inside of the focus group is a whole different story, but make sure you preload the focus group by saying, everybody's opinions are great. We like everybody in here. We want to hear any feedback you have, and it's okay to disagree. We love disagreement in here, so please tell us what you think. But respect everybody else's opinions, and we're gonna moderate and make sure that nobody takes too much time within that focus group, right? Because you really want to hear from everybody there. Good question.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Not everyone's gonna love your product either. So you do have to figure out, is this like a segment? Is this segment big enough? You know, because yeah, it's a universal, you'll make nobody happy, right? That there's a sense of that, right? We have problems with that too. So yeah, segmentation and trying to recruit the people that represent who you want to sell to. Is probably, and if there's still discontent and they don't all agree to that, then yeah, how do you dig and figure out why? And some opinions, you know, you're just gonna have to discard because they're not, it's just one person or just a small percentage of the market. Yeah, a lot of people want everything spicier, but nobody buys it because it's only a small but very loud group of the market who wants spicier food, right? But at the end of the day, they don't buy it, so, you know.
What do you do if your boss, partner, or employees don't want to innovate?
Why?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's exactly what.
You need to understand why. And so as a market researcher, that's always my first question when somebody says an opinion, I want to find out why. So you need to find out the why behind it. Is it money? Is it, I don't like doing anything new. I don't like, I know you guys have heard, you know, tons of reasons why people don't want to innovate, but, you know, at the end of the day, you need to understand the why, and then if it doesn't fit with you and what you want to do, might be time to find a new job. Unless you can, you know, make some changes and affect the culture a little bit more.
I think maybe building off of that a little bit, the understanding the why and then what is it? You know, what we ran into at P&L sometimes is that people wouldn't feel like a safe place, like I don't want to share my ideas because they, you know, there's other people in the room, there's, you know, all of these things. So how do you create that safe space? How do you create an environment where people feel more comfortable to share what those ideas are and make that a safe place? And so then that's where your focus would be too. So understanding that why, then you can actually figure out what do you actually respond to. If there, what other reasons can be there? You know, it might not be about safety. It might not be about the right place. Maybe it's about something else. The people that are in the room, maybe there's just one individual that brings a certain dynamic. And so how do you change that one individual to change that dynamic?
I want to answer that question too, because it's really near and dear to my heart, because what I've noticed over my career is that, you know, we're a mature business, right? Innovation in French fries is like, what are you talking about? Like that's, you don't really need to come up with a new French fries, but I feel like I've noticed the cycle of business. And if business is going really, really well, people don't want to innovate because we don't have any problems. It's all good.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if business is terrible, people are panicked and there's no time. There's no time. Innovation takes time, right? You can't expect to turn an innovation around in a week or two, right? I mean, you have to invest time and energy and fail to innovate. So that's bad too. What you want to do is you want to catch them like right when they're doing good, but they know there's more. Like, so the cycle of your company matters. And so I would say if the why is because we're in crisis mode or we're just doing great, then, you know, you gotta wait it out or get prepared because, you know, 1 quarter later, everything could change. And that's, That's what I've learned. And when I get most frustrated, and I think that's the sweet spot, is good, but not too good. Then people are interested in what you have to say.
That's great.
So for Erin, I know you talked about like mapping and competition. How can similar businesses come together that are in the same industry, collaborate more?
So you want to do co-innovation? So have you done much co-innovation?
Oh, not with a competitor,
Not with competitors.
because there's,
You've done it with packaging companies.
yeah, non-competitors for a same customer solution, right? But I don't, we would never work with our, well, never say never, but, yeah, I mean, because there's laws, like you can't do that. You can't like price fix and stuff like that. So I don't know how
But if
to,
there was some type of potato crisis where all the potatoes were dying, then you might.
yeah, I mean, that's when you do work with somebody, like,
Right.
because like Orida, Copax, Simplot, Copax for Orida. So Simplot actually makes Orida's product, right? They run the plant. And their competitors, right? So I guess there's a way to do that. There's a way to do that, but I don't have a lot of experience with that. And we're trained, basically not even to be friends with people, because this is too easy to tell secrets. It's too easy to be misinterpreted, that your conversation is some sort of, binding agreement or something like that. So you can try to answer that, but
Okay.
that's tough on me. Yeah.
Why do you want to co-innovate
I guess not.
with your competitors?
I guess just like like that collaboration piece between like, I guess building ideas, or, you did mention like kind of keep an eye on like what they're doing and kind of like make it better or find ways of innovating that. So I don't know if there's any like opportunities to collaborate and create something as a, for the better of the community or whatever you're working on.
That would be, if you're not, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think my
If you're not-
business
if you're not-
partner
if
in the
you're not
back wants to answer that for me though.
But if you're a nonprofit, I go for it, right? There's not.
Yeah, if you're a nonprofit, if you're working together as, lots of organizations trying to help the community, then that makes sense to do some innovation, because they're not exactly competitors. I mean, you're all helping the community together. But yeah, if you're
Like I'm thinking like food banks can help each other, right? And food banks can innovate together. So that would be, so you have a shared purpose.
But if you're an HVAC company, you're probably not gonna be innovating with the rest of the HVAC companies
Yeah.
in town, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I would love
Does
to
anybody have
explore
any-
that later. with
Yeah.
you. Figure out what you're trying to do, because that sounds interesting, and I love types. I love the
Kind of interesting.
type of stuff like that.
Does anybody have an example of when they've innovated with a competitor? You do?
Kind of something, in facilitation, and so I'm part of a facilitation community, and it's a global community, and so we practice together, we learn, a bunch of things, and in that way, we're innovating together, right? And I think we're able to do that because there's a lot of space in that market, like there's enough for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good
so
point.
it's
Yeah,
not so scary.
yeah.
But yeah, that's the example.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law is one of those wedding painters, and so and they're very collaborative with each other, because they're all trying to lift this whole new live wedding painting off the ground, right? And so that's a good example when there's plenty of space in the market for everyone to help each other. And it's okay if they have different markets, right? They're in different places, regions.
Yeah, I guess as long as you set the ground rules and you all know why you're innovating together and what that needs to look like, and it's not gonna be competitive, then yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, I'm super curious now.
I mean, typically, co-innovation works when you're trying to enhance or propel the industry. One example to Aaron and I, we worked with Ohio Aerospace Institute, and they bring a lot of experts into the room, scientists and aerospace engineering, chemicals, all this other stuff, to solve the big problems within the aerospace
deal, right? But one was around noise ordinance, right? I live right by the airport, it sucks at 5:30 in the morning, it's super loud. Every hour on the hour, I'm like, can you like be a little bit more quieter, right? So they work together with like, they bring Boeing together, Lockheed Martin, all these big players to solve for noise ordinance, because that's a huge issue across big cities, small towns, all this other stuff. So they come together and they say, hey, how can we solve this problem together? They make ground rules like how parents said, like, hey, we'll talk about this, this is some technology that we're working on, blah, blah, very high level stuff, right? They walk away with it and they're like, okay, here's the ground rules for what those ordinances need to be. It has to be under certain decibels and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, this is what the consumer wants, you know? This is what cities want. So they come up with this like playground, and then they go in and they on their own, with those ground. But that enhances the industry itself in terms of like noise, ordinance, safety, whatever they come up with. So creating those ground rules and then innovating outside of that is kind of what the is a regulation. But then there's things that, you know, there's a shared goal. So that's kind of the thing. So once you can kind of define kind of the value, problem statement together, then you can build them. So that's kind of the big thing. So if you go in, create those value propositions, and those ground rules, and you're doing that.
I also think like your physical proximity to your competitors, so like, I work at Visit Tri-Cities, so we kind of have been like dabbling in the idea of working with Visit Walla Visit Spokane. So get people to Eastern Washington, that live in Seattle, to kind of get people over here, and then from there, they break it down into one-night trips. And we are a nonprofit, but I kind of see it mirrored with Red Mountain AVA, so those wineries in that area seem to be very collaborative with their time, with their grapes. And again, just bringing people into Red Mountain AVA, that the chances of them going to one winery once they get up there is pretty rare. They'll probably bounce from 1 to 2. So I could see like that kind of crossing industries.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Nice.
That's where it makes total sense, right? Because if you can get them out to Eastern Washington, then they can go visit, you know, all this. We don't play like that, yeah. Actually, we do, because we have some major customers who must have multiple suppliers because that's their rule, right? And it's really hard because everything that we invent, they want us to teach our competitors, or they don't want it. So unfortunately, you pretty much don't bring your innovation to that customer because you know you're gonna have to tell your competitor what it is. You've just invested all this money to create it. So.
What is the best format for a brainstorming activity?
Sounds like you.
What are you trying to achieve? I mean, I think that, going back to what's the outcome that you're trying to get to? Who are the people? What are the process that you're gonna use? And so therefore, what's the space that goes along with that? Is it a space like this? Is it going outside? Is it completely virtual? That you have people from all over the nation? Like when we do our activities, we'll have people in different time zones. We'll have people internationally that are joining in on some of these. And so then you have to think of all of these different dimensions to figure out how do you create that safe, energetic space that is gonna help people do it. We do icebreakers a lot to help to break the ice, to help to give people something where they feel a little bit more connected, that they get a little bit down with any barriers that they're putting up to share, both for their own thinking as well as what they would maybe share with others, to help to create a space that you can actually do that. And then when we typically always have things, we call it a creative corner, that are around and give people permission that, hey, you can go grab a coloring sheet, you can grab some Play-Doh, you can sit, you can walk around the room, and we aren't gonna scold you like, Erin, stop moving around.
Stay on task.
Like, no, some people need to do that to be creative. And so how do you create the right environment that allows people to engage in the way that they need to? I don't know.
No, I completely agree. There's no one specific format that works the best. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish at the end of the day. Completely agree.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. We never leave 8th grade, do we? Since
I hope so.
So the Tri-Cities doing business in the Tri-Cities is unique because each one has its own unique identity and population and needs. I work in an urgent care clinic and we have clinics in 2 of the 3 Tri-Cities. Hopefully they have a third one. You know, Panda Express, for example, they're growing big time right now, having in all 3 cities, McDonald's is in all 3 and so on and so on. How do you do business in 3 very distinctly different communities? And meet the needs of those communities from the product that you offer? You know, a broken arm is a broken arm, no matter what community you're in. So how do we stay above the bad guys, with what we want to do to grow and expand and to make sure we meet the needs of those communities better than the other guy? Like, I can't call Cadillac and say, hey, what y'all doing over there? What's working for you? So how do we?
You can break
how do
your
we-
arm and go in.
Who reads is better?
I'm broken or nothing, it's terrible.
Yeah, take one for the team.
How do you get the insight so that you know how to, well, you need to know who your customer is.
Yeah. Who's going to those
Yeah.
clinics? Yeah.
Look at the surrounding area, look at who's going in there, and then start talking to them and seeing what their needs are. And see if their needs are unique and different from somebody in another area versus another area. We've got different pockets of populations, based on where you might live, and so there might be, specific needs, that are unique to each of those different populations, so, ask them. You've probably got, lots of people that you can shoot a survey out to find that out. As long as, you know, it's not a HIPAA violation.
And that's the thing, that anytime we use our people, our customers as a database, it's kind of.
I think you can kind of watch though. I mean, you could do a lot of observations.
Mhm.
And you can, if I was doing that's really a lot of like fun, right? Where you're just trying to, I mean, it may not be the services, right? Like you said, a broken arm, but maybe it's the hours of operation, or maybe it's the, you know, just like the location of the clinics, right? You know, it could be something that the product itself is the same that you're offering, but you're making it easier to do business with you, right? For in some way. So I think that would be, you know, because like you said, you're not gonna change the product itself, but the way that product is
Yeah.
presented or offered, or, you know, the waiting rooms, there's so many there's so much going on. Like, I could tell you a lot about urgent care, like, I've been there a lot. So like, I've got really good experiences and really bad experience, right? So I think that's that's one where interviews would be extremely valuable. It could make a huge difference in your experience.
Yeah.
In urgent care,
So
not the
one,
product.
so one of the things that we do, and we do a lot of local surveys, because we're here locally based, so we've got like 4 surveys out right now. We have a database of over 1,000 people that we shoot these surveys out to. We're on social media. We get a lot of surveys that way. So, we have a big database that we can tap into, send it out to lots of people and get a lot of, responses back. An initial survey can get you some great names so that you can interview and or do focus groups and find out exactly what your competitors are doing and how their experience was, and even what they thought of the experience for yourself.
And then you guys design the surveys as well, not just send them out, you design
We
them.
design surveys, we make sure that we understand what you're trying to get out of it, what is the knowledge that you need to get, and then distribute the survey, analyze it afterwards, and tell you what all the data says.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so from the survey, then you're gonna say, well, what's the valuable problem to solve, right? What's the problem that, for your customers, that's really making their life miserable? And that you can actually impact, right? And then that's what you wanna go after. Yeah.
I believe there's this question maybe for everybody that might want to ask these questions, like, I know everybody works at a different company, they own their own business and things like that, but when it comes to innovation, who needs to own that? And you feel organization.
Well, the CEO is supposed to own it, right? It starts at the top. I mean, the question about what if your boss doesn't want to innovate? I mean, in the day, if the leadership doesn't believe in it, then you really can't you can do pockets of innovation, but you really can't impact it. So in my opinion, it's got to be the CEO, and it's my constant job as a leader of innovation to remind him why it's so important. So that's part of my job, is to make sure he understands that. And then if he still chooses not to prioritize it, then I can make my own decision from there, but luckily he does. But to me, it's the top.
I mean, I think you definitely need the top, and you need also I don't think everybody at an organization has to own innovation, but you need some people throughout the organization, so that there are people at your sort of frontline researchers, there are people at your project managers, if coming from our organization, that are gonna give those different perspectives, and that can make sure that they can come in and engage in that process. It doesn't have to be 100% across the organization, but you need enough seeds that that when we're getting a focus group, we're getting different ideas and we're getting perspectives, and now we can actually implement that through the rest of the organization.
Yeah, so, I'm gonna say the exact same thing as everybody else. It's gotta come from the top. As long as it's supported from the top, then, it's fantastic, but it needs to be collaborative. It needs to be cross-functional. You need to have people from across the organization. You might have a finance guy that's really creative. That's great. Make sure he gets into those brainstorming sessions. He's going to have different ideas than the person from HR, than the person in product development. And if he hears what happens in a focus group, he's going to hear it differently and give a different perspective. All perspectives are good within those brainstorming and ideation sessions. Those are fantastic. So make sure that it's cross-functional when you do the innovation inside of your company.
Other books, podcasts, resources you recommend for boosting your creativity? What you got, Tim?
So Think Better this isn't quite as much on the creativity, but more on the innovation. So this is a resource. We have many of the things in this book are in our innovation kit. I had to get another copy because I'd used my other one and it was all like raggedy as I went through, but it's available from Tim Herson that I think is a great reference that helps to think about that whole problem-solving process of how do you understand the beginning? How do you ask the right questions? What are the ways to come up with solutions? How do you constrain those and move them forward? So this is one of our references that we use a lot out of the Foundry.
I love The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. It's a great book on innovation. It's understanding the jobs to be done. If you can understand what those jobs are to be done, that's the problem that needs to get solved. And if you can think of it in that way, it helps you to get more creative as to what you can do to solve it.
Anything good?
Any fiction.
I'll say one, the Daily Creative Podcast by Todd Henry, anything by Todd Henry. He wrote The Accidental Creative, Daily Creative, and how to lead other creative, people that are naturally creative. They're sometimes, not the same as some others. How am I saying that carefully? Right. You don't want to shut down creatives because their brains think a little differently. But some people lead them the same way as everybody else and it shuts them down. So I think it's called Leading Tigers. Any last question?
I have one last question.
Okay.
I'm just dying to know this. How did the air fryer avalanche industry affect Plan West?
Air fryers are good. It's good. It was because French fries are great in air fryers.
Oh, yeah, especially leftover.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the biggest issue is we have to redo all of our packaging because we have to put air fryer instructions on all of our products, right? So that's the biggest challenge is, you come to our lab, we have like 150 air fryers because we're testing all the different types of air fryers to make sure that we come up with something that everybody can use, right? So it's been great for the industry. Now, we don't, when you start seeing restaurants with air fryers, right, that's still not really happening. Turbo chefs and Mary chefs are coming, but, you know, we're definitely, you know, thinking about that. And then as people take fryers out of their restaurants, we need to be ready with a product that tastes just as good, but doesn't have to be fried, right? So, you know, I've always something working.
Let's thank our experts today for their time. And come up, grab their business card today. Their slides will be emailed to you and the video will be placed on YouTube. We also want to thank again STCU for their sponsorship of Ask the Experts, making it free to participate. Would you do us a favor and fill out the survey so that we can make these extremely valuable to you to attend again? And so that
I concur. Fill out the survey.
Survey guy over here says yes, and tell your business colleagues to join us if you're on Zoom, or else you can use this QR code. Otherwise, just fill it out and flip it over at your table and we'll come pick it up. Our next Ask the Experts, always the third Tuesday of the month from 3 to 4:30. And you've got this flyer here, Culture Course Correction. So these are 3 nonprofit leaders that are turning their business or their organization around. And how did they go through that process? And you're like, oh, I'm not a nonprofit. Doesn't matter, right? Things that they do are going to be applicable to you as well. So join us either live or on Zoom, and hope you'll join us again. May your business prosper in 2024.